everyone. Again, welcome to part 3 of the Ultimate Career Strategy Toolkit, where we will be focusing on building relationships in this one, right? So how do you take your online connections to the next level? And what's crazy is when we were first preparing this, it was a few months ago. And so we weren't in quarantine at that point. We were still going to events, and we've essentially it was called, how to take your online connections in person or vice versa. And right now we've really updated it. So it's how do you take, your online connections to the next level. So we are excited to be here and would like to thank Jill and Tracy, who are also with us this evening, for really facilitating this connection with the Ottawa Public Library and for creating this space for us to connect. So thanks for saying hey. If anyone joined recently, please drop your name or a little note in the chat, and we can keep connected for sure. So my name is Naomi.
And I'm Sam, and we'll be presenting our third and final part of our Ultimate Career Strategy Toolkit. So this has been a three-part series that we've been running over the past month and a half, just to talk about mindset, personal branding, and relationship building to help you guys on your career journeys. So thanks again for tuning in and joining us this evening. So tonight we'll be navigating the topic of, building your relationships and taking your online connections to the next level. So before we get started, just drop your name and what you're looking forward to learning tonight in the chat. I'll give you guys a couple of moments. And while you do that, I'll just go over some housekeeping. So just to make sure everything runs smoothly, please do ensure that you have your career toolkit ready. And if you don't have it downloaded, you can find it in the chat. So I'm just gonna paste it in the chat real quick. I see Solange differentiating myself from everyone else. Yes, we'll definitely be going over that. The second thing that we'd like you to keep in mind is, we'd love to keep engaging with you guys. You have been doing such a fantastic job utilizing the chat function. So throughout the presentation, feel free to use the chat to send Naomi and I, as well as everyone else on the call, any of your questions, your comments, or any personal stories that you may want to share, because we're all experts in different fields, and the more we can share, the more we can continue to learn from each other. And finally, we're going to have a dedicated question and answer period at the end of the presentation. So it'll be a great opportunity for you guys to just raise your hand. We can unmute you and you can pose your questions, and we can get the conversation going there. So let's have some fun.
All right, so we'll provide a little bit context as to who we are. So I really love, bringing people together and creative storytelling. I spend my day working in the international compliance industry, so in tax. And about 3 years ago, I also started a podcast called The Power of Why, to really interview creative people and entrepreneurs about their purpose and how they've navigated living in a way that feels honest to them. Because I noticed that those were the people that were most fulfilled. They were in tune with their truth, and that has really brought me to different countries across the world. And I've interviewed people in London, New York City, and right here in Ottawa. And in 2018, Sam and I actually met at a networking event. So this presentation is built on a lot of readings that we've done, a lot of in real life scenarios that we've also pulled from. And, we connected over LinkedIn, and shortly after, we created a thriving community in Ottawa focused on professional development.
And I'm Sam. I really love to bring different ideas to life, especially through writing and digital means. So by day, I work as a digital marketer in the real estate industry, and here I find creative ways to reach our customers online. So this presentation was really, it was perfect in terms of us having to switch to the online component, because it's what I do in my day-to-day. So it's a great way to be able to use some of the tools and tactics that I use to be able to help build and grow relationships. So as Naomi mentioned, we have had the privilege of creating a vibrant community here in Ottawa over the past 2 years. And throughout this journey, we've just learned so much about community. And this has really allowed us the opportunity to build so many beautiful and powerful relationships, both online and in person.
Yes, absolutely. So I think I mentioned it earlier, but I'd really like to preface that, you know, today during this conversation, it's slightly different from part one and part two. In the first two sessions, we did a lot of exercises. So we would take some time throughout the presentation and do some discussions and exercises. And we want it. It's still going to be interactive, but a lot of them are more reflection prompts and activities that we encourage you to do on your own time and embed into your own schedule. And so that's for folks who are here for part one and part two, that's something that you'll definitely notice. So today we're going to be going over the importance of relationship building for job success, and to always remember that there's a person tied to every opportunity that you're looking for, right? Another thing that we're going to go over is how to engage initially with people who are in your cold network. So folks that you are not necessarily tied to or have never met before. And, you know, we're going to go over LinkedIn etiquette. We're going over tools and different things that you can embed to your email or different websites as well to help you, connect with new people, find people's emails, track emails. And thirdly, how you can follow up with people in a way that inspires people to respond instead of to delete your message, and how to follow up and how often, right? So we'll start by talking about a primer for building relationships in person and online. So in the most traditional sense, networking can sometimes feel like a necessary evil, right? Something that you don't really want to do. I know when Sam and I first started networking, we didn't really enjoy it. But you feel that it's maybe required in some instances, right? For a better outcome or a better result. So for example, attending a networking event or a job fair that you really don't want to go to, but you're essentially wanting to meet with recruiters and employers because you may be searching for a new opportunity, right? A new job, you're looking to move within your current organization. And so, you know, in this table, we've outlined the difference sort of between networking and building relationships. So some say that networking makes them feel uncomfortable, an activity that is completely outside of your comfort zone. But what if it can be a learning experience, right? Not seen as an obligation, but where you can challenge yourself to meet new people and provide even more value, you know, by learning new things. Others, I've heard this before, say that networking feels inauthentic, right? That they can't be themselves if they're going to, this new environment. And we may even sometimes find ourselves saying, I'm going to have to put on a show. I'm going to have to schmooze and pretend to enjoy being there. But what if, building relationships are about being intentional, right? And building with purpose. Finding really specific people, that you want to connect with, people that align with you, instead of aimlessly, attending these events and web conferences. And lastly, I've also heard that networking can feel transactional, right? And, there are two different types of relationships here, transactional relationships and what we like to call transformational. And transactional relationships really serve a clear purpose, right? They exist to exchange maybe a product or service. And once that purpose has been fulfilled, the relationship ends, it's over. For example, you go to a grocery store, you interact with maybe one or two store clerks, you get your items, you pay for it, right? That's a transaction. You go home, you fill your fridge, great. So they're about what you can get, not necessarily about what you can give. Transactional, right? And they're not bad. Transactional relationships are not bad. We need both in this world. However, if you are trying to build meaningful connections, a transactional mindset arguably will not be able to serve you here, right? So transformational relationships, which are what we're discussing here, go well beyond. It's about advancing the people who are around you. It's about providing value, exchanging knowledge that you have, right? And essentially, what we like to say is that these relationships really make all the parties involved better, in some way. So in the chat, I know we've been saying, how does life and work feel like right now? I know some, might be in very different circumstances than they were a couple months ago. So we're in it, we're in the quarantine. So yeah, in the chat, let us know, how does life and work feel like today? What day is it today? June the 22nd. Love to hear. Anyone? We'll wait until we hear some responses. How does life feel like now? Is it different? Is it the same? Solange says, still no luck getting a job, getting very discouraged. Don't be discouraged, Solange. We're here. We're going to talk a little bit more, some strategies that you can use, and we'll try to help you as best as we can. Hard to connect with others, not sure what is going on since it's more as online, not as visible, for sure. Work and life are good. I feel like I'm getting used to the new arrangement. This will be over soon, says Sharon. Even though I connect with my friends and colleagues on a daily basis online, I still feel isolated. No, I definitely relate and resonate with everything that has been said here. And so, move to the next slide. So when we talk about transformation, transformational relationship versus transactional, the main question that I like to ask is like, how can we ensure that our networking experience are not robotic, right? And it's not like a step-by-step thing that you need to follow, but where we can all actually build the relationships that we want to see, right? So how do we move from generic email and LinkedIn templates, generic questions and elevator pitches that really only reinforce that conventional approach to networking? But how do we move towards a process that actually values the people, right? The people behind the opportunities. So in this next slide, I'll speak to some healthy dynamics, healthy relationship dynamics when it comes to connecting with recruiters, companies, employees, and professionals, right? So here are some new ones here. Communication is tough, says Diane. In some ways better as we were able to branch out, like doing this webinar from the US, Also a time to reestablish relationships that you have allowed to go dormant, for sure. Beautiful. So we're going to touch on a lot of this here. So for one, someone who values listening, right? I think people respond to those who really value what they have to say and listen intently, not only to respond to them, but to really understand. So when you're talking to people over Zoom or over the phone, are you asking questions to understand, right? Are you asking clarifying questions? Are you providing sort of like a safe space for people to speak their mind openly? And I know these past few weeks, we've been having a lot more uncomfortable conversations. And so I think here there's really value in being able to, step back and listen more. You know what I mean? Another aspect is someone who provides value, right? Are you sharing your expertise? Are people learning from you? Are you bringing joy in some way, peace? And an important element of providing value is understanding what the needs are, not just around you, but also within, right? Are you in a work setting? Are you aware of what your colleagues might need? What does the recruiter need in order to move forward in this process? If you're looking to publish a piece in a magazine, what does the writer need from you, right? So all of these things are essential when it comes to providing value and sharing content. Another aspect is someone who is trustworthy, right? If you trust the people that you work with and that you're meeting maybe for the first time, you can be yourself. You can be honest about your opinions and your thoughts. And do your actions align with your words when you're making new connections and when you're scheduling, a time to chat. Another aspect is someone who respects you and your time. I think this one's huge, especially when it comes to the online world more of an online world that we're living in right now, and time is obviously one thing that you cannot get back. So valuing people's times and how you approach meeting and reaching out to people is really crucial here, right? Being concise in your emails and being appreciative, and it goes a real long way, right? And the last one here that we've indicated, I know there are definitely many more, is someone who communicates well. Communicating, being able to communicate clearly and confidently, right? So you are all aware, I'm sure, of nonverbal communication cues, and it's said that 93% of all communication is nonverbal, right? So your eye contact, posture, smiling, your energy, and all of these impact your energy. And so I think that was the one thing that was really great about meeting people in person, is that you could communicate more than just using your words. And so how does that look like when you're chatting over web conference or when you're chatting over the phone? And I think the same thing goes. You can feel people's energy through the phone when you're talking, even if you're not able to see them, right? So these are all powerful things that we should all still consider. And I think poor communication, on the other hand, is often the crux of a lot of issues in the workplace. So for us, there have been many instances where I've said to myself, wow, like this could have all been avoided if, you know, we asked or approached things a little bit differently. If we took a couple minutes to just say, did everyone understand what was said here? What was your interpretation? And so I'd love for you guys to, did we miss any here? Are there any dynamics of a healthy relationship that you felt that, you know, could be added to this list, and things that have really worked out for you on your journey? I'd love to hear.
Thank you for sharing those, Naomi. Those are such important, you know, dynamics of a healthy relationship, whether it's online, as we are currently navigating now, or in person. So there are so many ways to build relationships, and, you know, pre-COVID, one of the most popular ways of doing this was through attending, you know, networking events. So before we get into this, how many of you guys used to attend networking events in the past? And if you did, how did you feel about them? So feel free to share in the chat. Give you guys a few moments. You know, I remember my first networking event. I was still in university, and it was this breakfast series that we had to attend, that our school sent us to, in order to mingle with professionals as well as, you know, people in different industries. So I remember it being one of the most nerve-wracking experiences that I've ever had. And although I managed to chat with a few people at the event and get their business cards, it all just felt so foreign and awkward to me, and very transactional. And once I left, I remember thinking and like knowing I was never going to speak to most of these people again. So have you ever felt that way at an event? You know, I see a lot of people sometimes awkward. Yes, I've attended a few. I didn't like them, Clark. A few times I got business cards, left CV, only chatted a little. That was from Sharon. Carol says, I only attended one and hated it. But after your branding presentation, you inspired me, and I'm now doing a 2-month like you recommended, and it's going well. Well, that's awesome. I'm very happy to hear that, Carol, that you're taking the plunge. I completely understand. A lot of it can feel very transactional, especially if you know, like, I'm here just to collect business cards and meet as many people as I can. Diane says, I was not really a fan at first, but got to like them more as I attended more. I love that. And, you know, when I look back now on my experience, on that very first experience, I can see why that event and a few others like it didn't work. I was just going for the sake of networking, and because everyone says, you know, you have to network in order to grow your career, you know, especially when you're starting out in your career or making a career pivot, or even if you're a business owner looking for new clients. So when we describe this whole process as networking, I find it tends to take the human side out of things. And this can really steal the joy out of the whole experience. But what if we looked at it for what networking actually is? At its core, it's all about building relationships and forming those deeper connections with people, right? So when you attend these events, be it in person or online now, what you're really doing is you're exposing yourself to a number of other individuals in your industry who all have similar interests as you. And this creates an amazing breeding ground for you to build relationships and connect with like-minded people. And this is what matters more than just racking up all the business cards or talking to as many people as you can at any given event. It's all about the quality of your relationships that matter. And by reframing networking to focusing on the relationship building aspect, you're able to think of it differently, and the process can become a lot more fruitful and enjoyable. So before we get into how you can start to build your relationships with new people, we need to talk about the value of your existing network and community. In business, it's often said that the best customers that you have are the ones that you have right now. And one great quote that really illustrates this is from Julian Patel at Xerox. And he says, "It is generally agreed that it costs between 5 and 10 times more to bring on a new customer versus keeping and developing an existing one." So this not only applies to the business world, but also on the individual level in your personal and professional life. So this is just to show that before you start looking for new people to join your network, it's worth taking the time to really take inventory of those who are already a part of your network. The biggest challenge when it comes to building relationships really revolves around the cold call, meeting new people, as well as all of the other activities that are involved in engaging with the unknown. And that's why when you're starting on this journey, it really helps to start by connecting and deepening the relationships with the people that you already do know now. And it's really helpful to ask yourself, how can you grow your relationship with these people and form deeper connections? How can you help them, all the people who are already in your network now, and how can they help you? And as you take stock, remember to focus on your immediate network. So these are people like your family, your friends, friends of friends, or old acquaintances from school or your previous jobs, and so forth. Because everyone from your family members to the delivery man could all be portals to an entirely new set of people, which you can unlock just by building and deepening your relationships with the people who are already in your life. And in the next few slides, Naomi is going to dive deeper into how you can do this.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Sam. And as you were speaking, Solange in the chat, she said, this is where Mavati's business model falls apart. They're more interested in bringing in more clients and ensuring those that they already have are happy.
Yes, yes.
That really aligns with what you were saying.
Yeah. It's not just the quantity, it's the quality too, right?
Yeah, because I think, a big part of even within businesses when we're talking about transformational relationships is if you ensure that your not just your customers, but your employees are happy and taken care of, like that's how word of mouth happens, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of spending all that time to, attract other people, if you just take care of the people who are currently there, they will do business for you. They will tell their friends, they'll tell their family, and I think that those are great energy and vibes, right?
Yes, 100%.
That's a great point. Thanks for that, Sam. Okay. So this quote, if you've been to part 1 and part 2, definitely not new. And I think it's really relevant here as well because it gives sort of, it gives you ideas on how you can connect with people beyond just connecting with folks, right? So it says networking is not just about connecting people. It's about connecting people with people, people with ideas, and people with opportunities. And here we broke it down a little bit more, right? So how can you connect people with people? What does that look like? It can look like making introductions. If you have 2 people in your network that need to connect with one another, make the introduction, send an email, send a LinkedIn request. And actually in this chat, I connected with someone who is, here attended one of our earlier parts in the series, and we chatted over the phone and we made introductions to people who are in our network. And I think that's just such a great way to bring value to people. Another one here is connecting people with ideas. So what can that look like? It can look like, if you come across a new book, a podcast, an article, a music idea, which is cool, a business need maybe, or if you're even connecting with a company and you see them in the news, or you come across some company intelligence that could be helpful for them, it's great to send that off, right? As you read and as you consume these resources, I always think, like, did anyone come up in my brain, like, as I was reading something? Is it associated with their line of work? Is it something that they would find interesting? And if that does happen, so quick to, like, send that off to them. And, you know, that's a great way to engage in conversation as well. And the last item here is connecting people with opportunities, right? So did you come across a job maybe, or a speaking opportunity that someone could really benefit from? Or maybe there's a pitch competition that your colleague would be well suited for, because you had an earlier conversation with them. Like, you know, what we mentioned earlier about there's always a person tied to every opportunity. So if there is a company that you're associated with, or your friend works there, and you know someone who is interested in maybe, you know, exploring that option, that's another example of connecting a person to an opportunity, a job, a competition, whatever it may be. And in this case, what we're really saying is that there is power, and there is an importance of providing value to others and essentially planting seeds, right? And it's not just, oh, I'll plant the seed once and I'll see the tree the next day. It's no, these are intentional seeds that you're planting, and, you know, maybe in a couple months or a couple years, you'll see it bloom and thrive in that way. And I firmly believe this, that I don't think that we as individuals can succeed, however you define it, if you are not helping the people around you. That's something that I firmly believe in. So just, if there's any way that you can support the people around you and help them get the things that they want, that it will come back in some way, some shape or form. So this slide, what do you want? There's nothing worse than when someone asks you, how can I help you? And they're left with a long, you know. For one, it may signal that you didn't really take the time to prepare and assess your priorities and your needs, right? And when people are in positions to support you and open up their network, this is not necessarily something that should be expected, that they're going to open up the floor for anything that you need at that time. But I think it's important to be ready. And people need to trust you to feel comfortable in terms of making themselves available, or even making another introduction. And so here, just really preparing your ask and your questions and ensuring that they're concise is really important. Because we learned this the hard way, Sam and I. There was an instance last year where we went to an event, a conference in Atlanta, Georgia, and there were some creative entrepreneurs out of New York who were there. And we met them in a really awesome way and connected with them by phone a couple of weeks after. And as we were about to wrap up the call, they asked us, like, how can we help you, you know? And we didn't have an answer. And so they were met with smiles and silence, of course. And I think if we were better, we can't hear you laugh, Sam, but I think if we're better prepared with some of our gaps, and where we would have definitely been in a better position to really leverage that ask and really come with something that we were struggling with in that moment, right? So here, it's just really powerful to share your ask with people, not just when they ask you, but also out of the blue with your friends and people who are in your network as well. And also to ask people to share their ask with you, you know, what's on your plate? What are you looking to accomplish this year or the next couple months? And because people can't read your mind, and definitely over that call, they couldn't read our mind. And so what we're trying to say is that please make sure that you have taken the time to clearly understand what it is that you need, right? So that you're aware of how people can provide value and how you can provide value to other people, right? Can you suggest, so Carol, can you suggest some icebreakers, openers, when you walk up to someone you don't know at an in-person networking event? This is a great one. Sam, if you want to hop on to this one too, I think it'd be valuable. For me, I think for one, assessing what the body language is of the person that you're looking to approach. Because I think when people there are different instances. If there are two people connecting and they're faced right in front of each other and not really, you don't get the energy that they're looking to connect with other people at that moment, that's not one that I would go into, because I've tried it and it doesn't work out well. But I think if people are faced in a way that is more open and they're open to having more people come in the conversation, I would just, go straight up to them and say, hi, I noticed that you guys connected here. And, my name is Carol. I'm really looking to connect with people in this industry, and, just introduce yourself. And I think people are so open to, they came there to meet people. You came there to meet people. And so I think just coming up with a smile and saying, hi, my name is Carol. Like, how are you? How did you find out about this? Is a great start for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Just, being warm and friendly and having like that confidence to come in and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, and asking what the other people do, just to, get a better understanding of who they are. Then the conversation can grow from there. Another good question, I guess, is also to ask them about what brought them to the event, because then that can also help you understand who they are, why they're there, and similar to what Naomi was talking about, understand what they're looking for so you can start to bridge the gap.
Beautiful. I've heard also that you should always go up to either one person or three people. Two is a hard group to break into. At least at that point. Another cool thing, this is just a side note, if you're going to a networking event that has either a food table or a drink, a bar, I had this one person give me a really cool tip where they actually wait right beside the bar, because right when you're grabbing your drink or right when you grab your food and you turn around and you're alone in that case, having someone who's there, to say, hey, is, I think, a perfect opportunity, right? So when people are turning around, oftentimes they're grabbing food alone. That's such a great way to come in.
Yeah, that's a great point. And also, if you tend to be like on the shyer side, chances are there are a lot of other people who feel the same way in that room. So if you walk up to other people who are standing alone and like looking for someone to talk to as well, that's kind of, that's an easier way to start the conversation with those people. And I find that those one-on-one conversations are more rewarding than the big ones in the group where you're trying to follow what everyone is saying. So you just have to find what works for you.
I agree. If anyone has some tips, please share. Please share in the chat. All right, so this is our first reflection prompt. So similar to what an exercise would look like in our past presentations. So Sam and I love these questions and reflection points really that you can use. So please, after this call, if you could take 30 minutes, 60 minutes, however much time you need to really try to embed these options into your schedule, into your lifestyle in some way if it fits. Because it's, I think, important to spend, time doing at least one thing each week that brings you closer to your goals, right? Whatever your flow is, but try not to leave these items empty, because we chose them pretty intentionally. And so for one, what's a valuable skill, expertise, or even perspective that you offer, right? So here, are you an activist? Are you a community leader? Do you work in human resource management? Are you a marketer like Sam is? Whatever expertise or perspective that you bring to the table, whatever presence, that you bring, what is it? Being able to identify it clearly in maybe one or two sentences, and to really practice that out, right? Test it. How does it resonate with people when you're using it at networking events or on calls? So I think just constantly being ready and not being left with an or silence is really great in terms of building connections. And in the last presentation, so Jill and Tracy should be posting the video online soon for part 2. We talk a lot about, those content ideas as well that you can use. The second item that we have here are, what are your top 2 asks? So in that previous slide, we talked about, being ready with sort of what your needs are at that time. So are you building something? Are you in the midst of building something right now? Do you need press? Are you looking for a new role in the technology space? Are you looking for, opportunities to write in a publication or somewhere online? I think, being able to write down a list of things that you're kind of seeking, or maybe it's on the horizon, things that you're looking for, is a great point of reference. So when you are making these calls, you have something on hand and you're just more prepared, more comfortable. Does anyone have questions about one or two on this list? If not, I'll move on. Okay, the third option that we have here is write out your 10-year resume. Cool exercise that we've both done, because I think it kind of reminds me of the quote, most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years, underestimate what they can do in a decade. And so a few weeks ago at this point, Sam and I met with some friends and we shared our vision board. So it was, we didn't meet in person, we met over Zoom, and we shared what we're working towards and who we want to intentionally continue to be and what we want to accomplish. And it was really incredible actually to visualize what is possible and what we can create. And I think to see what Sam wants, to see what our friend Stacy wanted, is such a great way to also make those connections, right? And also be aware of ways that I can provide value to. So doing this exercise, writing down what you want to do, what your resume in 10 years looks like, is so cool, and it actually helps you crystallize. Sure, it's not going to be etched in stone, but helps you crystallize what it is that you potentially see for yourself in the future. The fourth item here is list the top 5 people or experts that you have to connect with, right? Who are these people? Where can you find their work? Do they have interviews online? Do they have videos that they've shared on YouTube? Are there podcast episodes that they've done? I think just doing as much research as possible and, asking them questions that really set them up as experts is a really great way to elicit responses from people as well. So if you are looking to get into a specific industry, whether it's learning design, whether it's product management, really being able to identify who the top 5 people or experts are in that field and read everything that there is about them, I think it better prepares you for questions that you can ask and different research outlets that you can also delve into. And the last item where you can get your Excel sheet out is how about groups and conferences, right? Where can you go physically or online, digitally, to interact with this community? And are there, maybe some online groups or digital conferences that you can go to get some more exposure? So Sam will delve into some websites that can help you with your research. Cool, everyone? Cool.
Thank you for sharing those very important questions, Naomi. So once you've taken the time to reflect on the questions and you've established your networking goal, the next step is to find the events that will help you achieve your goal. So just because there are events happening in your city, it doesn't mean you need to be at every single one of them or every single online event. It's not just a lot of work on your part, but it's also impossible to be everywhere at the same time and all the time. So this is why it's so important for you to use your goal as your North Star to help guide you in determining whether or not any given event holds any real value for you. Because if you choose to attend an event you had no interest in attending in the first place, or where you're not going to learn anything that is going to contribute to the skill set you're looking to build, then what you're doing is you're throwing away precious time that you'll never get back, and which could have been reinvested towards things like growing your business, refining your resume, and making genuine connections with others who share interests with you. So this is why it's so important for you to network intentionally and keeping your goal in mind. I really love this quote by Dina Bakowitz. She says, start where you're motivated to meet new people with common professional or personal interests. So take some time to think about what you're passionate about and the types of people with whom you're most comfortable with when it comes to selecting the events that you'd like to attend. And it's a sure way to help guide you towards the events that are going to be right for you. So as Naomi discussed at the beginning of the presentation, and as we all know, a lot has changed in the past few months, and physical gatherings are no longer a thing, which means we only have the online space through which to connect with people and to build our relationships. But this doesn't mean that networking is dead. You know, it just means that we have to adapt our strategies and change our approach in order to cater to our new reality. And one way for us to do this is to be proactive in searching for events online while keeping your career goal in mind. So for example, if you're a real estate agent and you're looking to grow your network of fellow real estate agents or clients, you can start by looking for real estate meetups, conferences, or events on websites like Meetup, Eventbrite, Facebook, or even LinkedIn groups. You know, these are such great places for you to start looking for events that are tailored to your goal. And we recently found one that's more geared to the creative crowd. It's done by Creative Morning, and they've taken their community for creative people online through their virtual field trips. So this is a great way to also find events, and you could even ask your friends or your network if they know about any events that are happening that you could be interested in. And if you've looked through all these websites, you've asked everybody and their mother, and you still can't find anything that meets your needs, then you can always take the initiative and host your own event. So platforms like Zoom and GoToWebinar are such great places to host virtual events that will allow you to bring together people to connect and allow us to still be together while we're apart. So given that the physical component of, you know, our events and meeting with people has been taken away, how can we adapt and form connections with people online? What you've been waiting for. So before you attend an event, one great thing that you can do is you can take the time to research the presenters and connect with them prior to the event. So one great place for you to do this is through social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or you can even reach out to them via email if you have their information. So this is a great opportunity for you to take the chance to introduce yourself briefly, let them know you have registered for their session, and perhaps pose a question about the content or share any information about the topic that you have so you can get the conversation going. So this is a great way for you to kind of soften that ground and set yourself apart before you head into the session and you have that base to build upon. Another great way to connect with attendees is to take part in the chat box during the webinar, which a lot of you guys have been doing tonight, so which is fantastic. You know, a lot of platforms like Zoom, which we're using today, have a chat box that the presenters and attendees can participate in throughout the call. So don't be afraid to use it. It's such a great way to ask questions to the panelists and attendees, to share your thoughts and experiences and form connections with others. And engaging in the chat throughout the call really gives you visibility and allows you to stand out to everybody on the call, so that when you're sending connection requests afterwards, people immediately know who you are from the call, and you have that base to start off your conversation. You can even keep the conversation going afterwards by dropping your LinkedIn URL in the chat if the presenters call for it, or at the end of the call, you could be brave and say something along the lines of, you know, thanks for the presentation, I'd love to connect, connect with me on LinkedIn here, and let's keep the conversation going. So there's many ways for you to get that, that connection with people, even though we're not having these big conferences and events still. So if you'd like others to connect with you following the session on LinkedIn, just drop your URL in the chat and we can keep things going afterwards. So I'll keep going as you guys do that. Yeah, so we've talked a lot about LinkedIn, and the reason for that is because it's such a great way to connect with people easily, especially in the professional world. It's unlike any other social media platform out there, And because it's so closely related to your career, I know it can be so intimidating to engage in it. And, you know, when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing and if I was doing things right. I remember looking up everyone I'd ever met just to get an understanding of all of the components that go into your profile, only to find out people can see that you've been on their profile, so don't do that. But because we're in this new reality where connection is digital first, it's really helpful to have some guidance on where you can start and how to use the platform. So everything that I never had when I started. So before we get started into that, I'm just curious, how many of you guys actively engage on LinkedIn as it is? So just let me know in the chat. And it's okay if you don't, that's fine. We're about to give you some pointers on how you can get going. St. Lawrence College said just a little bit. Naomi says me, I know you are. Solange, not actively, but moving forward well. I love that. Okay, so here's a few things just to know. So a couple of do's. So do always send a connection request with the note. So it's a great way for you to add context as to why you want to connect with someone. So think of it as your virtual introduction. You know, in person, you wouldn't just go up to someone and be like, hey, here's my business card, right? You have to introduce yourself and say, hey, my name is Sam, shake hands, although we don't know if that's gonna be a thing afterwards. You know, you have that conversation and then it's like, hey, do you want my business card? Let's keep in touch. So this note that you put with your connection request, it acts as your introduction, and it doesn't even take 2 seconds to compose. So here's an example of a connection request that you can send to a speaker to introduce yourself and to give context as to why you're connecting and ask them to connect. So I was writing this to Naomi as she's speaking tonight. I'm like, hey, Naomi, I'm going to be attending your Ultimate Career Strategy Toolkit workshop, and I would love to connect with you prior to the event. Looking forward to the session, Sam. So here, you know, I've reached out to her, given her context as to why I want to connect, because I'm going to be there at the event as well. And I gave the sign off, looking forward to the session, and my name. So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. You just have to tailor it to like suit your personality and what feels right to you. But make sure you're giving them context and, you know, opening that door for further conversation. So once you've connected, that's when you can start to open things up. So here's an example of a follow-up message that you can send to someone that's just to get that conversation going. So this is a real message I sent 2 years ago. I was going to an event in LA. It was just a summit for major like LinkedIn creators, and there were a couple of creators whom I really looked up to who were going to be speaking at this event. So I reached out to one of them and I was just like, hey, my name is Sam and I've been following you on LinkedIn, like your videos for a while now, and I love your authentic videos and I appreciate all of the advice you share. So this was just a brief introduction, just giving context as to like who I am, why I want to reach out. And I gave a genuine compliment because I did really appreciate his content, and who doesn't love a compliment, you know? So I went on to say, I live in Ottawa and I'll be attending the Masterclass Summit, and I would love if we could grab a quick coffee. So I gave a little bit more background about who I was, and I also gave that, you know, that ask, which was, could we grab a quick coffee just to learn about your journey? So that also helps to, you know, make sure we're both on the same page as to what we're going to be talking about at this coffee. And then the final thing was looking forward to hearing from you, Sam. So that's like my call to action and then the sign off. So feel free to, you know, personalize it, but these are just some of the elements that you can embed into some of your follow-up conversations just to get that ball rolling. And as you can see, it worked. He was open to it and we met up. So yeah, don't be afraid. Most people are more than willing to help you out, especially if you show that you've done like the homework and you are looking to like grow and become a better person. So don't be afraid. The next thing is don't send generic connection requests to all of your connections. You know, you want to make sure that you're personalizing each and every one of your connection requests, and make sure you're using the right name and that you've typed it in correctly. So we all know that first impressions count, and the connection invite is your digital first impression. So you want to make everyone feel unique and give them a reason to accept your invitation. Next, do engage with other people and their content. If you're shy, which is totally understandable, especially if you're just getting started, you can really start off by liking other people's content and eventually grow into commenting on it. And as you become more comfortable, you can start by posting your own content and have other people engage with you too. And the greatest thing about LinkedIn is that it gives you a lot of visibility. So if you like or comment on someone's post, your action is not only visible to your network, but to the poster's network as well, allowing you to become exposed to this whole new secondary network of people as well. But don't comment on or like posts just for the sake of it. You know, you need to only engage with the content that resonates with you and that you believe in. Because as I mentioned, when you engage with other people's content, it broadcasts it to your network and their network as well. So it kind of becomes a double-edged sword if you're not paying attention. And you want to make sure that you're affiliating yourself with content that you care about and that will help you meet your career goals, and nothing that is incriminating or suspect. Do engage others in the conversation as you start to create content. So if you're having a conversation with someone, perhaps over like a virtual coffee, or if you're watching a webinar like this one, for example, and you learn something that gives you new insight or that inspires you, share what you've learned on LinkedIn and tag the other person in your posts just to thank them. So this helps you to get the conversation started with the other person, and it lets them know as well that you gained value from your interaction. But don't be spammy and tag everyone and anyone and everyone in your posts. You need to be sure that the content you're tagging people in is relevant to them. You know, a lot of people just tag people left, right, and center just to try and game the algorithm. But at the end of the day, it's all about relationship building. And if you just tag people for the sake of it and they look at the post and they're like, why am I here? It can really sour your relationship. So try not to do that.
We've both done this. We've both done this before.
Yeah. We're all learning. We're sharing our learnings from some of the mistakes that we've made.
Yeah.
Next, do use the messaging feature to get to know your connections on a deeper level. So if someone made a great post that you resonate with, you can not only like and comment on their post, but you can also let them know about the impact that their post made and further the conversation in the inbox. But don't use the inbox as a means of selling your products or services. It's very annoying, and it's a great way. It's not a great way to build a relationship. It's, you know, if you start off by in someone's inbox by saying, hey, just buy my t-shirts, right off the bat, you're starting to talk about yourself and what you do without having taken the time to get to know the other person's pain points and their needs. You know, it's kind of like dating. You take the time to like woo the person, you get to know them, and you don't just jump up to someone and be like, hey, let's get married now. You know, that's not how it works. So, you know, LinkedIn is not the only way in which you can connect with people. You can also use emails and other platforms to reach out to them. And I really wanted to emphasize that if you're really interested in connecting with someone, don't be afraid to reach out and ask. Again, more people are more than willing to help you out. And the worst that could happen if you ask someone for something is a no. So don't let the fear of rejection hold you back. Now, Naomi is going to go into the email etiquette side of things.
Yes, thanks, Sam. And a lot of it definitely translates to all platforms, right? So, but we're going to get a little bit more specific with email. So for one, which Sam mentioned, make sure that you get the recipient's name of your email right. We have someone that we look up to named Pollyanna, and part of her normal presentations is to talk about the types of names that she receives, right? So her name is Pollyanna, and she'll get things like Polly, Paulina, things that have nothing to, you know, close to her name, but not her name. And so I think especially when it comes to email, the least that you can do is to spell the person's name correctly. It's the first thing that they read when they open up the email and can definitely set the tone, right? So a different perspective to this is to also remember that a person's name is, this is a quote, "To that person, the sweetest and most important sound in any language," by Dale Carnegie. So if you've read How to Win Friends and Influence People, he talks about how using people's names when you're talking to them in email in whatever format is, people get butterflies when they hear their name. So that's almost like a flip side to ensuring that you get it right, is that when you do, it brings something else to the table. Another aspect is to keep your subject line concise, right? Engaging and short, while avoiding vague subject lines like hello or hi, because it's not meaningful and it doesn't help the person receiving your email sort through their inbox, right? So give them some more context on why you're reaching out, what specifically. Another aspect is to practice good grammar, right? So you can use tools like Grammarly. I don't know if anyone uses Grammarly. If that would be of value to you, which you can add to your Chrome internet browser as an extension. And it essentially checks for grammar in whatever that you're composing. So if you're sending an email, great, it'll help you with little pieces here and there. Number 4, responding in a timely manner, right? And depending on who sent you the email, I think ideally it's great to respond to people between 24 and 48 hours. And if you can't respond within that time frame because you need to get some more information, simply, you know, acknowledging that you received the email, so the person who sent it is not wondering, you know, did this message go to junk or did they see it? Is a great way to just say, hey, I received it. I'm going to look into this for you. You can hear back from me in a couple days, right? Number 5, the last one, is to follow up with people, but not to pester, right? And from what I've gauged from personal experience, it seems like 7 to 10 days is a respectable amount of time so that people don't feel overwhelmed with constantly having your email bumped to the top of their inbox. But also by not following up, you're really leaving opportunity on the table, right? So I think a lot of people like to say that they're busy or are preoccupied, and so emails definitely get lost and forgotten. And so to follow up with people is to remind them that you care, and that you're interested in this working, you're interested in this relationship, right? And I think, you know, for us, we really want to shift that narrative around following up, because I think it's the single most important area of opportunity that people often dismiss when it comes to building relationships, in fear that they are being annoying, or, you know, this person doesn't want to hear from them and I don't want to constantly follow up. But in fact, HubSpot, which we provide an example for later, collected data that shows 80% of sales closes required 5 follow-up phone calls after the initial meeting. So being consistent is powerful. Being consistent and respectful in how you do that is really powerful too. And if you still don't hear back from people, try changing your strategy, okay? So try a different platform. You can maybe ask for an introduction to someone that you know knows them. And that's definitely another easy, I think a more simpler way of getting through the doors, through someone saying, hey, I know this person, they're cool. And I think that's definitely another way to start a conversation with someone. And so this is really fun. These are some tools that Sam and I have both tried out, things that we've, you know, really helped us when it comes to following up with people and really taking email to another level. And so these are some things that you might enjoy. For one, you can see the first screenshot is a tool called hunter.io. So it's a mail tracker tool, and it is also a Chrome extension. So I put the link into the chat. You can check it out if you're interested. But essentially, you use it to track your emails, and you can actually see how many times they've opened up your email, from what platform. Did they use their laptop? Did they use their cellular device? And exactly when. right? So at what time, what day. And I think this is also helpful when it comes to being able to follow up with people. And here, this is an email that I sent. It was opened 25 times, 11 hours ago. And so you're able to see, just verify that, yes, they've received it. Yes, they've looked at it a couple times. And it also helps you gauge when's an appropriate time to follow up. So it doesn't necessarily need to be, 7 to 10 days after your initial email. Another great tool is Clearbit. This is an awesome way to find anyone's email. So when you add, I'll put the link in the chat as well. Essentially, when you add this extension to your email, you are able to search by company, and it actually bring you, I typed in Twitter for this case, and it brought me the emails, the where they're located, their position, their name, their photo. And you can do this for free, where you can connect with them on Twitter, on LinkedIn. And this is such a great way to get directly to their inbox, right? Instead of making, maybe taking 5 other extra steps that you didn't need to connect with someone. And the last tool to really, bring some light into your inbox is to use HubSpot's email signature template. So this actually provides you like a really creative way to display, your contact details at the bottom of your email signature. You can even put your picture there if that's something that interests you. Your details, maybe a link to your website, a link to a TED Talk that you've done. And I think this is such a great way to personalize your email and show that you're a human being and you've done work and you have something to show for. So I'll put that link there too if you're interested. All right, so these are some ways that we can follow up, what that can potentially look like. I think earlier we mentioned, the importance of following up, and it's definitely not about asking for status updates, right? Because everyone does that. But what can you do that's really original, right? What are things that you can say that make them actually want to open up your email? Again, think people, ideas, and opportunities like we discussed earlier. So this is an example here. If you've reached out to Mary, who is a recruiter at a company that you're interested in, you've already reached out to her and you're looking to follow up and hear back, how are you doing along the process? Maybe if you find an article like, here, I thought of you today, I was reading the news, I saw that Gemini Inc. was mentioned in this article, congrats. It would definitely be great for any potential recruits that you have. I hope all is well with my application. Please let me know if you require any other details. I would be more than happy to deliver. So this is a way to get an update on how you are in the process without that only being the reason for your email, right? So it can be an article, maybe a relevant book. You can even repost something that you saw that they posted online, comment, engage with it, and offer something of value in that case, right? And an item here that, yeah, no problem, Diane. Examples are really important. And then finally, all of this, I think building a network and building your brand, which we talked about in part 2, is a lot of work. It can be a lot of work, and it takes a lot of energy, especially, in between working and spending time with your friends and family. So throughout the journey, just remember to be gentle and be patient with yourself. Not everything needs to happen tomorrow. Not everything needs to happen in this hour. And so just being able to set realistic goals for yourself. It could look like attending one event every 2 weeks or making one new connection every week. Although these may look like baby steps, they're not. And if you're just getting 1% better every day, that's consistently what makes the difference when you look back a year from now and you're like, wow, I connected with one person every week and look how many connections I have right now. So yes. And one way practically, as we speak to examples, as Diane was mentioning, is actually I'll pull from a book that was written by James Clear. He's the author of Atomic Habits, which I would definitely recommend to anyone. And he talks about the importance of building systems, right? So he says that goals are about the results that you want to achieve, and systems are about the processes that you've put in place that actually lead to those results. So how can we, me, you, Sam, how can we look intently at how our daily habits compound 5, 10, 15 years from now, right, down the line? What can we do today? And although talking about goals and systems may seem like a far stretch from building relationship, at first glance, it really is not. It's really, these things feed into each other, right? So in the chat, can one person or maybe two people share why goals and systems are actually quite, support you on your journey to building your network and building relationships? It can be one word, it can be a sentence, whatever you want to share. Why is building systems connected to building relationships and really like nurturing those relationships in your life? Anyone? It is your roadmap, and you wouldn't get in the car without a roadmap. I love that. That's great. And so, one example that we can offer today is, and that I personally do, is by tracking my time, right? And what do I say are my priorities, and how do I actually spend my time? It provides you guidance, 100%, and motivation and accountability. I love it. Right? So if Naomi says that relationships are important, my family and friends are important to me, I really value making new connections. How much time do I spend with my family and friends? How much time am I, sitting down to connect with new people online or at in-person events, right? If I say learning is important, am I being intentional about reading? Am I taking courses? Am I watching interviews? And lastly, if I say health is important to me, am I carving out time to exercise? Am I carving out time to make healthy meals? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I drinking water, right? So are we being consistent in our activities? Are we getting 1% better every day? So your schedule, like what I've blurted out, but your schedule speaks to you, right? And so if our schedule speaks to our priorities and your decisions, the decisions that you're making every day are actually voting for the person that you want to be, what is step one, right? We can say that it's awareness, right? So documenting your activities, tracking how you spend your 24 hours. When we talk about relationship building, part of your time should be spent on building relationships, right? And everything that we mentioned will take time, but it's up to you to decide how you want to not spend it, but invest it for what it could look like in a couple months, in a couple years. And it's not about overbooking, okay? Like, it's not about overbooking your calendar with all these little tasks that don't amount to anything. And it's not about rushing from task A to B, but it's about building habits that mean something to you specifically, right? So Joseph says systems are like crutches. They provide structure and support for healing, or in this case, achieving a goal. I love it. For example, I exercise certain times of the week so you can track it, as you said. Yes. So some examples that I listed here are setting up morning rituals or evening rituals that really help anchor your day, right? Because I think throughout the day, things can get very hectic, but what we can do is take ownership of how we start our day and how we end it. Are we starting it the way that we want? Are we closing the day the way that we want so we can rest properly, right? Number 2 that I listed here is priorities, right? Being able to plug in your priorities into your schedule first, and then you can add all the other stuff after, right? So my 3 priorities that I listed: relationships, health, and learning, business. So I spend time on Sunday mapping that out. What does that look like for the week? And then lastly, reflection time to think and just be on your own. And whether it's listening to music, whatever you need to do to relax, it's really powerful when it comes to making these habits something that doesn't just last a week, but is something that you can do for the rest of your life, right? In a way that makes sense.
Thank you for sharing those, Naomi. Self-care is so important in these things, because at the end of the day, it's a marathon. If you just decide to try and do everything today, you're eventually going to burn out, right? So how can you make this sustainable so that you can continue to do this in the long term? So that being said, you know, in today's one, for a lot of you who have attended our previous sessions, we didn't have a lot of activities. And the main reason for that is because when it comes to building relationships, it's up to the things that you do every day that will, you know, determine the quality of your relationships. So to help you on this journey and to supplement everything that we've talked about today, we've created a July Connection Challenge for you guys. So there's a couple of items here that we're just gonna walk through. So firstly, you need to set a networking goal for yourself. So take some time to really think and ask yourself, you know, why are you networking? Are you looking to grow your network? Is it because you're looking to find a job? Or are you looking to tap into a new industry? This goal is so important because it's going to serve as your North Star, and everything and all of the decisions that you're going to make must feed back into this goal. The second thing is you'll need to find 2 events for July for you to attend. So we listed out a number of websites where you can find some of these events. So take some time to go through them, look for events that are related to your industry, and just look for 2. And if you have more time, attend 3. So just make sure you're pacing yourself, but start with 2. The third thing is to join a LinkedIn group or a Facebook group in your industry. So all you need to do on LinkedIn, just type in, you know, X, maybe like marketing groups, or, you know, real estate groups or accounting groups. You can do the same thing on LinkedIn and just send a request to join. And once you've done that, try to connect with at least 2 people every week. So a great way for you to be able to do this is to, you know, go back to that LinkedIn group or that Facebook group that you've joined, and then go through the members. And if you look and you see that some of the people who are in this group really align with where you're trying to go, or you could learn something from them, or you could be able to help them on their journey, then send a connection request and then start to build the relationship from there. And the final thing is, you know, make a post on LinkedIn and tag at least 1 other person. So it could be someone that you've learned from, you know, someone whose work you admire. You don't necessarily need to know this person personally, but the post just needs to be relevant to them, as we discussed. So I think it was Solange, you mentioned you've started to become more active on LinkedIn. This is now a further challenge to the work you've been doing. But I think really this activity is going to really help you guys to become, you know, set these systems in place that are going to allow you to reach your goal, as Naomi was walking us through just now. So as you go through this, feel free to reach out to Naomi and I. Let us know how it's going. We'd love to hear from you guys, even if you have questions as to any of these connection challenges. Yeah. So now we're going to open it up for the question and answer period. You know, this is a great opportunity for you guys to ask for clarification if there was anything in the workshop that you had questions about. So you could either engage through the chat, or if you go at the bottom, there should be an opportunity to raise your hand, I think. I don't see it anymore, but just let us know in the chat and we can unmute you if you'd like to say something. See, Solange, you'll be updating your profile this week. Amazing. Not the challenge.
The link was only a 2-pager, not the challenge. The challenge is on the 2nd page. Am I misreading something? Yeah, so if you go to page 3, you'll see the networking challenge. So all the points that Sam went over are on page 3, yeah. And the items that I went over are on page 2, the things that you can reflect on. Cool, no worries at all.
Awesome. And you can repeat this throughout the year, just do one for each month. This one was just June before we moved the session, but yeah. You can do it for July, you can do one for August, and
whenever.
You know, you can look back in a year's time, and if you keep doing the 2, you'd have had 20, well, yeah, 24 new connections.
Any questions? Let us know before we're pretty good for time. So we have about 10 minutes before we say goodbye. We're wrapping up the series. So thank you to everyone who's been here since day one. And thank you for the people who were here for this one as well.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing your Monday evening with us. It's always fun to do these.
And I like how it's people that are not just in Ottawa, but you're right. Someone mentioned earlier about, folks in the US being able to listen in. And so, yeah, it's been a pleasure for sure. Any questions? We can also, absolutely, Sharon.
So I'm just going to drop Naomi and I's LinkedIn URLs here so you guys can connect with us. And feel free to share yours as well so we can all keep the conversation going. You could even get a head start on your 2 connections.
Oh, wait. Okay, there's so many questions. Are the slide decks for the whole series available? So we provided them to Jill and Tracy from the Ottawa Public Library, so they'll be making them available as well as the video recording on their YouTube channel. In your experience, what would be the #1 thing to avoid when trying to build relationships online?
That's a good question. I think the most important thing is just being transactional. Just reaching out or like connecting with people just for the sake of, getting something in return. It's kind of like, it's all about the long game, right? You get to know these people, then you deepen and build your relationships together. And if there's a fit in terms of the services that you offer and the needs that they have, then you can start to, bridge that gap in a more organic way once you've built that relationship. I think the most important thing is just getting yourself out there, because a lot of these things you learn as you go too. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes as you go. So as you start to build your connections online, don't focus on the things that you should avoid. Just try to put yourself out there and like be open to like meeting with people. And as you go, you'll learn from all the missteps you may make, because they will happen and that's okay. Just make sure you learn and that you can do better as you grow.
I like that. I like that answer.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'm just thinking back to the interactions or the messages that don't inspire me to respond back. And it has been the transactional request, like, hey, they don't even say, hey, don't even make any attempt to get to know you, but it's like, here's something like, here, I will train you or something. And I'm like, that doesn't even, you haven't even established, you haven't established, any sort of environment for us to connect as humans first. And so even something that one of my friends says is she does not talk shop for the first at least 2 or 3 interactions. And so it's just about developing relationships as friends, as colleagues, whatever it is. Yeah. And then all those other things will work itself out, right?
Exactly. And at the end of the day, people always do business with those they know, like, and trust. Yeah. So this is a great way for you to get those people to know you, like you, and trust you. And then you can slide in the business stuff.
And I think one of the, for folks who didn't go to the part 2 of the workshop series on personal branding, we break down different ways to sort of build trust over time. And the short version of it is building content online so people can engage with you in so many different ways, right? Whether that's creating content for people to learn on LinkedIn, making YouTube videos of you training on, your particular area of expertise, that's how I get to know you without meeting you in person per se, right?
Yeah.
This is the first presentation on networking I've attended that makes sense. Thank you so much for developing it. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Jill.
One of my professors was miffed when she got an email from someone saying, hi, first name. She wanted them to show some respect. It's true.
Lots of funny stories.
Hi, first name. That's insane. That's why it's so important to read through everything that you send before you send it.
Yeah. And Solange dropped her LinkedIn, link here. So if you guys want to connect with Solange, do so. Anyone else want to put down their LinkedIn? Make sure to connect with us.
Yeah. Any more questions that we could answer for you? Thank you for sharing your LinkedIn, George, so you can all connect with George here as well.
Awesome. Okay, so I think that's it. It doesn't look like there are any other questions coming in. So formally, we'd love to thank Jill and Tracy again from the Ottawa Public Library for really creating the space for us to connect with you this evening. And thank you. I want to thank Sam too. Thanks, Sam, for just engaging and it was so much fun putting this together.
It really was.
Yeah, just thank you for everyone for engaging yes. And just being awesome throughout this process. And as Sam mentioned, feel free to message us on LinkedIn if you want to chat further, and we'd be happy to support you however we can.
Yeah, thank you again to everyone who's showed up tonight and all the previous evenings, and to the Ottawa Public Library, Jill and Tracy. This wouldn't have been possible without you. And thank you as well, Naomi. This was a lot of fun. I learned a lot too. So it's been great. Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.